Let me ask you a question. Do the atoms in your body ever grow old? The answer is, they do not. Because they were born in the heart of stars, drifting for billions of years. And even now, as they make up who you are, they remain perfectly intact. Yet, therein lies the contradiction. Your memories are fading. Time relentlessly marches on against you. But for atoms, time might as well not even exist. This leads to a dangerous possibility. That time is not a fundamental law of the universe, but merely an illusion within our own consciousness. How could that even be possible? And more importantly, what does that actually mean? Could it be that time isn't that unbreakable chain we thought it was? What if it could be manipulated? What if it's just a byproduct of much deeper, hidden laws? Wouldn't our entire understanding of reality be completely turned upside down? Does time only exist because we perceive it? Or has the universe itself dictated its flow, trapping everything, atoms included, firmly within an invisible grip? So, over the next several dozen minutes, we are going to embark on a journey to explore the bizarre nature of time in the quantum world, to face the unsettling thoughts that arise when we gaze too deeply into the void, and to tackle the ultimate question that has haunted humanity for centuries. That is, are we trapped within time? Or is it that time itself is the greatest illusion of all? To answer all these questions, we must start with our conventional understanding of time. For centuries, humanity was convinced that time was unshakable. Day and night, the changing seasons, the stars following their fixed paths. Ancient thinkers believed time was the bedrock of the universe, beyond any doubt. That was until Einstein came along in the 20th century and shattered the illusion of absolute time. His theory of relativity taught us that time is not rigid. It is flexible. It is woven into the very fabric of reality, right alongside space. Time can slow down, speed up, stretch, and contract. And even more shockingly, its flow depends on how fast you are moving, or how close you are to a massive gravitational source. This is not just a scientific breakthrough, it's a complete rewriting of reality. Imagine a pair of twins. One stays on Earth, the other travels on a spacecraft, cruising at near light speed. Decades later, the one from the ship returns. He might have only aged a few years, while his sibling back on Earth is already gray-haired and old. This means time isn't the same for everyone, it is relative. But that's only the beginning. Because, at a deeper level, time might not even exist at all. Relativity tells us that in the macroscopic universe, time is malleable. But quantum mechanics is even more radical, it wipes out the certainty of time entirely. In the subatomic world, time becomes a mystery. An electron orbiting a nucleus is nothing like a planet orbiting a star. It has no clear trajectory. It exists only as a probability cloud. It's both nowhere and everywhere, until it's observed and forced to settle into a position. Even more mind-boggling, scientists have discovered that in the double-slit experiment, a particle's behavior can change its past actions based on a future choice. It's as if the future is deciding the past. This makes us have to wonder, is time really what we imagine it to be? Are the past and future truly that distinct? If time can be bent, stretched, or even rewritten, then do atoms even experience it at all? Or are they simply living on a plane that transcends time? And what's truly bone-chilling is quantum entanglement. Two particles become entangled, no matter how far apart they are. Their fates are tied together as if by an invisible thread. Once one is observed, the other responds instantly, even across light years of space. This communication is faster than light, faster than any known signal. But this raises a terrifying question: if their communication has no delay, then does time have any meaning at all? Some physicists even suspect that entanglement might be the key to understanding time. If atoms can exist in a state beyond time, then perhaps time is nothing more than a human illusion? And this leads to another issue: decay. We've all learned that atoms decay. Radioactive elements, like uranium, eventually break down into smaller, more stable particles. But this process isn't dictated by some absolute clock. Instead, it's governed by probability. An individual radioactive atom doesn't have a set expiration date. It could decay the very next second, or it could hold on for 1 billion years. When it chooses to decay, isn't determined by a schedule. It's more like rolling a quantum die. Patterns only emerge when you look at the big picture. That's what we call half-life. Yet, the strange thing is, despite atoms being so uncertain in time, we still experience time as a solid, forward-moving flow. We grow old. We watch the hands of a clock tick away. We can remember the past, but we can never remember the future. So, the question arises, if the atoms that make up everything don't truly experience time, then where does our sense of time come from? Could time just be an emergent property? A phenomenon that only appears on a macroscopic scale? If you looked at the universe from the perspective of an atom, would time really unfold at all? It is precisely this doubt that leads to one of the most unsettling ideas in physics, that time might not be a fundamental component of the universe at all. Some physicists believe that time isn't a real physical dimension, but merely a concept created by the human brain. It only exists because of our limited perception. If that's truly the case, then atoms, these building blocks of reality, might be completely unaffected by the passage of time. They aren't young. And they aren't aging. They don't belong to the past. They simply exist. But what does that mean for us? Are we trapped in time, constantly being pushed forward? Or is it possible that time itself is just an illusion, a shadow cast by some deeper reality? In searching for answers, we are forced to return to the foundations of science, the mysteries of quantum physics and the bizarre effects of relativity. And the truth is often far more mind-bending than we assume. Because if time isn't an absolute force, if it can bend, stretch, or even not exist at all at the quantum level, then when we say I feel time passing, what exactly are we experiencing? What is it that gives time a direction? Why can we remember the past but not the future? Why do we perceive time like a flowing river, rather than a frozen lake where every moment exists simultaneously? It's often explained as disorder. But more accurately, it measures the number of possible arrangements within a system. It explains why a shattered glass won't put itself back together, why smoke won't drift back into a match, and why heat always flows from hot to cold, instead of the other way around. It is exactly what gives time an arrow, pushing it forward in one direction. But here's the contradiction. At the atomic level, the laws of physics don't require time to move forward. The movement of electrons, the interactions of particles, and even the fundamental equations of force, can all work in reverse. Quantum mechanics has never dictated that time must only flow in one direction. So then, if the microscopic world doesn't force time to flow, why is it that we can only remember yesterday, but cannot remember tomorrow? One explanation is that the universe began in an extremely low, highly ordered state. And it has been drifting toward greater chaos ever since. But the question is, why did it start so orderly? Why wasn't the universe born in a state of total chaos? If that had happened, there would be no galaxies, no planets, and no life. Why was the universe specifically arranged this way, allowing us to clearly experience the passage of time? Could it be that time isn't actually fundamental? That it's just a byproduct, something that only emerges when you zoom out and observe from a macroscopic perspective? If that's the case, then a single isolated atom, like a hydrogen atom floating in the void of interstellar space, doesn't experience time at all. It doesn't age and it doesn't change unless acted upon by an external force. It simply exists. There is nothing interacting with it. And no system is changing either. Does time even have any meaning for it? If there is no reference point, can we still say it is traveling through time? An even crazier idea is this. If we could arrange a bunch of atoms exactly as they were in the past, and reverse their movement at the quantum level, would that actually make time run backward? In theory, if we could reconstruct every single atom, every quantum fluctuation, every microscopic detail, we could make time run in reverse. Some physicists even speculate that in certain corners of the universe, like inside a black hole, there might actually be regions where time runs backward. But the question is, why have we never seen this happen? Why don't atoms ever suddenly rearrange themselves into how they looked in the past, decreasing entropy instead of increasing it? The answer might still lie in the quantum realm, where everything is determined by probability. Even if time reversal is theoretically possible, the odds of it happening are unimaginably small. In other words, it is not impossible. It is just almost impossible at the scale we can observe. Even so, some have proposed even more radical theories. The Wheeler-Feynman absorber theory suggests that every single particle in the universe is not just influenced by the past, but also influenced by the future. Which means, the movement of an electron is not only guided by waves moving forward, but also by waves moving backward. If this is true, then atoms aren't just moving forward through time. They are spanning across time, influenced by events that haven't even happened yet. When you look at this alongside quantum entanglement, it gets even more intriguing. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. Two entangled particles, even when separated by light years. The moment one is measured, the other responds instantly. This seems to defy the very concept of time. How can anything span across space without any delay? Some theories even suggest that entanglement is not just a connection in space, but also a connection in time. Perhaps two particles don't just share position and spin, they also share their position in time. Does this mean that information, or even causality, can break the limit of time's one-way flow? Could an atom in the present be influenced by future events? If that were true, our entire understanding of time would need to be completely rewritten. But this leads to an even deeper question: if atoms do not age, if their quantum properties ignore time, and if entanglement can bridge the gap between past and future, then why are we, as conscious beings, trapped in time? Why must we follow this one-way street from past to future, while atoms seem to exist so freely? Could it be that time is simply a construct of the human brain? Just a way for us to process information? Neuroscience shows that our sense of time is closely linked to memory. We can remember the past, but we cannot remember the future. Yet, this isn't a law of physics, it's just how the brain works. If our brains were wired differently, would we perceive time in a completely different way? Or even live outside of time, just like atoms do? If time is not fundamental, but rather something that emerges from quantum mechanics and human perception, then once we learn to manipulate it, what will happen? Could we unlock new technologies to step outside the flow of time? Could we use entanglement to send information back to the past, creating some kind of quantum time travel? Could it be that atoms themselves hold the key, making time no longer an obstacle, but a tool? These questions are pushing physics to its limits, and forcing us to face the truth of reality. We always assume time moves forward because that is our only experience. But the deeper we look, the more fragile that assumption becomes. If so-called time doesn't actually exist, what does that mean for us? Are we destined to be beings pushed along by time? Or perhaps, like an atom, free from the constraints of the past, the present, and the future, living in a universe that completely defies our understanding? So, in the time ahead, we are heading to the most extreme places in the universe. Black holes, neutron stars, and the very edge of the observable universe, to see how time behaves in these extreme environments. And the answers we find there might completely shatter everything we know about time. If time is merely an illusion, a construct shaped by relativity and quantum mechanics, then, when reality is pushed to its most extreme limits, what happens to time? What happens to time deep inside a black hole? What happens to time on the surface of a neutron star? And what about time in those unreachable galaxies at the edge of the universe? If atoms aren't bound by time the way we are, then in these places, could they exist in an entirely different way? To understand the limits of time, we must start with the most terrifying place in the universe, a black hole. A black hole is a gravitational monster, region of space where gravity is so intense that not even light can escape. It is the end of physics, where the laws of the universe break down. But more importantly, a black hole is where time itself fails. Imagine yourself falling into a black hole. At first, everything seems normal. But as you get closer, you would notice a strange warping of time. To you, yourself, everything would seem perfectly normal. But to an observer far away, your movements would appear to slow down. Your clock would tick slower and slower. As you approach the event horizon, that point of no return, your time would almost come to a complete standstill. The outside universe, you would appear to be frozen at the edge forever, captured in the moment just before you fall in. Yet from your perspective, time outside has accelerated. The entire universe would age rapidly before your eyes. Stars burning out, galaxies twisting and warping. If you could survive, you might witness the entire future of the universe in a heartbeat. But once you cross the event horizon, time completely collapses. No past, no future, only a singularity remains, an unknown point that devours all of space and time. And yet, even then, the atoms that make up your body still exist. They still obey the fundamental laws of physics. They don't grow old, they don't experience time the way you do. If an atom could think, would it feel like it was frozen in place? Would it even perceive the existence of time at all? Or is it simply living in a state that transcends time itself? And black holes aren't the only places where time gets warped. Neutron stars, the remnants left behind after a massive star collapses. also give us a glimpse into the twisting of time. Neutron stars are incredibly dense. A sugar cube's worth of their material weighs more than an entire mountain. The gravity here is so intense, near black hole level, that it causes severe time dilation. If you were to place a clock on the surface of a neutron star, its ticking would be far, far slower than a clock floating freely out in space. The outside world races forward, while time on the neutron star just crawls along. So, what happens to the atoms trapped within that environment? Do they remain immune to the flow of time as well? If that's the case, then does it imply that time is nothing more than an illusion that only emerges on a macroscopic scale? The mystery of time goes far beyond black holes and neutron stars. It extends into the deepest structures of our universe. At the edge of the observable universe, as space itself expands, distant galaxies are moving away from us at speeds faster than light. Their light will never reach the Earth. These galaxies are effectively banished, existing beyond our own time. So, do the atoms existing out there still follow the same laws of time as we do here on Earth? Or have they long since moved beyond the very definition of time? If time can be stretched, slowed down, or even wiped away in different corners of the cosmos, then what is it, really? Is it a force, like gravity? Or is it something even stranger? A byproduct that only appears when we stop to observe it? Greater than. This brings us to a more profound question: if time is relative, and if it is flexible, then what does that mean for the laws of physics? Are those constants we rely on truly independent of time? Or are they, too, dependent on the elasticity of time itself? Taking it a step further, if time is emergent, could it actually have a beginning and an end? We always assume time stretches infinitely in both directions. But what if that's not the case? Some physicists speculate that in the distant future, as the universe continues to expand and cool, time might actually come to an end, when the energy runs out, when all particles reach equilibrium, with no more motion, no more growth, and no more change of any kind. At that point, time will cease to exist. If time can end, does it also have a start? The Big Bang is considered the beginning of the observable universe, but is it also the beginning of time itself? Or could it be that time already existed before the Big Bang, stretching back into an endless past? If atoms aren't bound by time, have they existed in some form all along? More unsettling still, if time is an illusion, a construct that only emerges under specific conditions, what does that mean for us? Are we just creatures trapped in a perception of time, forced to accept its relentless flow, while the true nature of reality remains hidden? If time isn't fundamental, what exactly is our experience in this moment? Some physicists have even proposed more extreme ideas. They believe that the entire universe, including time itself, might be a projection, a hologram from a much deeper reality. If that's true, then our sense of time isn't an absolute property of the universe, but merely a side effect of some hidden framework. This might explain why atoms seem to transcend time, unaffected by its passage. This perhaps means that everything we know is just a part of a much larger, stranger reality. If atoms are truly free from time, then perhaps they are the key to understanding the universe's deepest secrets. These might just be the evidence, proving that the time we experience is nothing more than an illusion. If that's truly the case, how much of our reality is just a hallucination? And how much remains hidden, waiting to be revealed? In the segments to follow, we're going to explore a bolder question: if time doesn't exist at all, what does the future even mean? Is the future already set in stone, just waiting to be uncovered? Or is reality still being created as we speak? Is it possible for us to break free from the cage of time one day, and be as free as atoms? The answer might be far more unsettling than we ever imagined. In fact, there is one of the most shocking possibilities in all of physics. The future is already written, as fixed as the past. In classical physics, if you knew the position and velocity of every single particle in the universe, you could precisely predict everything at any given moment. The past, the present, and the future are just different frames on the same roll of cosmic film. Nothing is random. Everything follows the laws of mathematics. If that's the truth, then free will is nothing but an illusion. Every move you make, every thought you have, was determined the very moment the universe was born. But the arrival of quantum mechanics shattered that certainty. Unlike classical physics, quantum mechanics embedded uncertainty into the very foundation of reality. A particle, before it is observed, does not have a fixed position. An atom won't decay at a specific, predetermined moment. It only follows a probability distribution. The universe is no longer a precise clock, but something far stranger, governed by chance and possibility. This leads to an even deeper inquiry: if the future isn't fated, and if atoms don't follow a fixed script, then what exactly is the future? Does the future already exist, just waiting to be revealed? Or is it being created, moment by moment? Some physicists believe there is no such thing as the flow of time at all. In their view, the past, present, and future all exist simultaneously. This is known as the block universe theory. In this picture, time is like a frozen landscape, where every moment is already there. The reason we feel time moving forward is simply because our consciousness is traveling through this landscape in a specific direction. Imagine you're flipping through a book, reading page after page. You think the story is unfolding, but in reality, the entire book was already written long ago. If that were true, what would that mean for atoms? Do they exist in all possible moments simultaneously, completely indifferent to the passage of time? If we could change our perspective, could we, like atoms, see the entire past and future all at once? But another possibility is even more bizarre. What if time isn't a fixed landscape, but a flowing piece of writing? Could it be that the act of observing, the very process of measuring, is what creates time itself? Quantum mechanics has long hinted that reality isn't fully formed until it's observed. Schrödinger's cat is the classic example. Before the box is opened, that cat is both alive and dead. It exists in two states at the same time. Only when the observer looks inside is its fate truly sealed. If this principle applies to time as well, then the future isn't something that already exists, but a moment that is only created when it is observed. Before that moment, it doesn't exist at all. The question is, if no one is watching, would it remain in a state of possibility forever? If that's the case, what does it mean for atoms? Could it be that, at the smallest scale, atoms aren't moving through time, but actually deciding it? Could time itself just be a byproduct of atomic interaction? A property that only emerges when enough atoms gather to form a complex system. If atoms are immune to time, and time only emerges under specific conditions, then if we could manipulate those conditions, what would happen? Could we create a reality where time no longer applies? Some physicists believe so. Quantum mechanics and general relativity might just be the key to opening that door for us. They've even moved time travel from the realm of science fiction onto the physics table. The equations of general relativity allow for closed time-like curves, paths through spacetime, that, theoretically, can loop back on themselves, potentially leading to the past. But if atoms themselves don't experience time, then what does time travel even mean? Are we truly traveling through time, or just shifting our perception of it? Could it be that the secret to time travel isn't about moving forward or backward, but about stepping outside of time entirely, into the timeless state where atoms seem to exist? If we could do that, what would we see? Would we witness all of history at once? Would the future be laid out right before our eyes? Or would we fall into an eternal now, where time loses all meaning? If time is an emergent property, if it only arises when we observe the universe in a certain way, then could it be that by experiencing it, we are actually creating time itself? Could time just be an illusion projected by our brains onto reality, a framework we built to make sense of the world? Some physicists even believe that time might just be a byproduct of how our brains process information. In fact, the past, present, and future might not be different at all. They could exist simultaneously, with our consciousness forced to experience them one by one. If that's true, then atoms aren't prisoners trapped in time. They are free. They exist in a state that transcends time, where all possibilities coexist. And if atoms can exist like that, then on some level, perhaps we could too. Maybe it's our own sense of time that keeps us locked away. If we could change that perception, could we experience things in a completely different way? Experience reality? Could it be that time isn't our prison at all, but rather an illusion we've created ourselves? This leads us to the next question. If time doesn't truly exist, and atoms really can transcend it, what does that mean for the universe as a whole? Is the universe an eternal, timeless whole, or is time truly a necessary part of its structure? If time isn't real, what then is the true nature of reality? The answer might be much deeper than we imagine. Some say, the key to understanding time lies in going back to the very beginning, the Big Bang. According to modern cosmology, the universe began as an infinitely small, infinitely dense singularity. All matter, energy, space, and time were compressed within it. Then, in a single instant, everything suddenly expanded. If time did indeed begin with the Big Bang, that raises a question. Was there even a before that? Many scientists believe that asking what came before the Big Bang is meaningless, because time itself didn't exist before then. Without time, there is no before. It's just like asking, what is north of the North Pole? But the question is that really the case? Could it be that time existed in some form even before the Big Bang? Some theories suggest that our universe is just one of countless others. In the multiverse, time might exist in a completely different way. Or perhaps it doesn't exist at all. Other models propose that the universe undergoes an infinite cycle of expansion and contraction. In other words, the Big Bang wasn't the starting point, but merely the beginning of a new cycle. If time is just a product of our universe, one that only emerges under specific conditions, then the question goes even deeper. Could there be places or even entire realities where time doesn't exist at all? Could it be that in certain regions of the cosmos, atoms exist in a timeless state, no longer governed by the laws of cause and effect? But if time is an illusion, is just a byproduct of perception, but then, where does this perception come from? Why do we experience time as linear when the universe perhaps isn't? The answer might be hidden in quantum mechanics. Because at the subatomic level, particles don't seem to follow a timeline at all. They exist in a state of superposition. They can be in multiple states at the same time. It is only when they are observed that they collapse into a definite result. Some physicists believe this suggests that time is not the foundation of reality, but rather a product of how quantum systems interact. If that is true, then what we call the flow of time might just be the result of quantum decoherence, the process where quantum possibilities collapse into solid, definite facts. In other words, time might not be an independent feature of the universe at all, but just a side effect of information being processed at the quantum level. But this only deepens the mystery. If time truly originates from quantum interactions, could we one day manipulate these interactions to control time itself? Could we make it slow down, speed up, or even stop it altogether? The sci-fi fantasies about time travel might not be entirely fictional after all. Because the concept of closed time like curves in general relativity tells us that under certain conditions, like being near a rotating black hole, one might actually be able to return to a point in the past. But the question is, if atoms themselves don't experience time, would they even notice? Could an atom know that it has returned to the past? Or would it just keep existing, as it always does? And if time can truly be manipulated, what kind of impact would that have on causality? We have always assumed that cause must precede effect, but is that really the case? Could there be time loops that allow an event to go back and influence its own past? Could atoms even interact with themselves at different points in time? It sounds like science fiction, but experiments have already given us clues. The delayed choice quantum eraser experiment hints at this very possibility, that a decision made in the present could actually change an outcome that has already occurred. To think we can actually change the outcome of what has already happened, even if the particle has already passed through the device. If you go back and erase the information, its behavior is still affected. This implies that quantum systems might not move forward in a single direction through time at all. They could be constrained by the future. So, could time be not just flexible, but reversible? Is it possible for atoms to move both forward and backward, existing in a state where the past and future are blurred together? If that's the case, then the question arises, why can atoms ignore time? While we live our lives trapped in its constant flow? One explanation is that consciousness plays a role in this. Perhaps time only exists because we are observing it. It is our brain that forces reality to be split into past and future, just so we can make sense of it. If that's true, different types of intelligence might experience time in completely different ways. Take artificial intelligence, for example. Its brain might not experience time the way we do. So, is it possible that there are life forms in the universe that, like atoms, perceive all moments simultaneously? And if we could change how we perceive time, could we experience that same reality? Could we truly step outside of time to look at a universe with no past and no future? The question becomes even sharper. If time isn't actually real, and is merely a result that emerges from quantum mechanics and observation, then when we die, What actually happens if consciousness is dependent on time, and time is just an illusion? Then could death also be an illusion? Could there be a state where the past and future completely dissolve? Some scientists believe the answer might be hidden in a new theory that can unify quantum mechanics and relativity. Whether it's loop quantum gravity or string theory, they all point in the same direction. Time might be even stranger than we ever imagined. In fact, some scholars have proposed that time isn't part of the universe at all, but merely a holographic projection. It's just a side effect of a deeper order. If that's really the case, then time, space, and even reality itself might all just be illusions. And what about atoms? If they truly transcend time, they might just be the key to understanding the essence of existence. They could perhaps answer the oldest question in human history: what exactly is existence? The questions don't stop there. If time is truly an illusion, can we still trust reality? Could there come a day when humanity masters the technology to break free from the constraints of time? If we could, would our place in the universe be rewritten entirely? But then again, if time can be manipulated, is it still just an experience? Or is it more like a tool? For thousands of years, humanity has been obsessed with time travel. From the gods of ancient myths to the wormholes and relativity of modern science fiction, we've always imagined ways to escape time. But if time isn't fundamental, and is merely a byproduct of quantum interactions, then could time travel not be a fantasy at all, but a hidden ability of the universe, just waiting for us to unlock it? This brings us to the weirdest phenomenon in quantum mechanics: entanglement. Two particles can be separated by infinite distances yet influence each other instantly. One is measured, and the other responds immediately, as if distance and time don't matter at all. If that's really the case, then events happening now might actually be able to affect the past, and the past could conversely shape the present. So, could we use this phenomenon to send information back in time? Some have proposed experiments to see if entanglement can enable retrocausal communication. If that were actually possible, causality would have to be completely rewritten, because the future and the past could be influencing each other. But the problem is, we've never seen this happen in real life. No one has ever received a text from the future, nor have we seen events playing in reverse. Why is that? Perhaps it's because, even though time isn't real in the fundamental sense, it is still bound by deeper rules. And these rules prevent any contradictions from ever occurring. Let's keep living in a world that only seems to move forward. Some even believe the universe itself follows a self-consistency principle, meaning that even if time loops or reverse communication exist, they wouldn't create any paradoxes. In other words, even if you really could send a message to the past, it would only happen in a way that avoids creating any logical contradictions. But could time be even crazier than that? Maybe. The reason we never see anomalies in time is simply because the world we experience is just one of countless possible realities. This brings us to the many worlds interpretation. According to this theory, every possible outcome of every quantum event actually happens, just distributed across different parallel universes. In other words, every atomic decay, every particle measurement, and even every choice you make causes the universe to split into new timelines. If that's true, then the future is no longer a straight line, but a tree of possibilities constantly branching out. Atoms could exist simultaneously in countless realities, heading toward different endings. And we just happen to be living on one of those branches. So, what does that mean for us? Are we really just moving forward along one single branch, while in countless other universes, there are countless different versions of ourselves? Some physicists even suggest that even if time travel were actually possible, it wouldn't allow you to change the past. It would only take you into another branch. Over there, a different outcome has already taken place. In other words, once you go back to the past, you can never return to your original timeline. You've just entered an entirely new reality. But even then, there's still one wall in our way: the unidirectional nature of time. Quantum mechanics might allow particles to behave in ways that transcend time. But in the macroscopic world, everything we see, everything is driven by moving steadily in one direction. It's why glass can only shatter, never magically reassemble. It's why heat can only flow from hot to cold, and never the other way around. It's also why our memories are trapped in the past, never pointing toward the future. But what if In the deepest, coldest void of the universe. In those regions where energy is almost zero. Time operates in a different way? In that place, the past and the future might blur together. Perhaps atoms could exist in a state that transcends time itself. And if such a place exists, could we ever reach it? Could we, like those atoms, truly step outside of time? Ultimately, this question brings us back to philosophy and consciousness. If atoms don't experience time at all, then is time something that is only created because we are here to observe it? Could it be that consciousness itself is imposing order upon a universe that is essentially timeless? Many scientists believe that the reason we perceive time is actually just a side effect of how our brains process information. Before an atom is observed, it can remain in a timeless quantum state. But our minds cannot. They require time to function, processing reality frame by frame, just like a movie, playing forward 1 second at a time. So, that leads to a question. If we could change the way we perceive the world, would we experience a completely different reality? Could we, like atoms, exist in multiple moments all at once? If we could find a way to manipulate our own perception of time, could we truly experience the past and the future in a single instant? Or even step out of time entirely? If that were true, our entire understanding of reality might be turned completely upside down. Because if time is nothing more than an illusion, then just how many things appear real that actually aren't? This leads directly to the ultimate question, the fate of the universe. For billions of years, the universe has been constantly expanding. Galaxies are moving away from each other, just like a balloon being blown up. But it won't go on forever. Eventually, it will converge into one of 3 possible ends. The first is called the Big Crunch. The expansion slows down, stops, and then reverses. Everything will collapse back, leading to a catastrophic destruction. If that moment truly comes, time might, just like its beginning, have an end. But the question is, what will happen to atoms? Will they disappear completely, or will they somehow remain, waiting for the next cycle? If atoms truly transcend time, could they even escape the collapse? The second is called the Big Freeze. The universe will expand forever, getting colder and more desolate. Entropy keeps increasing. Stars will burn out. Black holes will evaporate. And even the smallest atomic structures will dissolve. If time is just a measure of change, then when nothing changes anymore, will time simply vanish? Will it happen in trillions of years, that the universe enters an eternal silence where no events occur at all? The third, more extreme, is called the Big Rip. The speed of the universe's expansion accelerates, until even atoms are torn apart by the pull of space itself. At that point, time will not just end, it will be completely shredded, ripped right out of the fabric of existence. But the question is, if atoms don't experience time at all, is it possible that after this destruction, they could still exist in some incomprehensible form? Regardless of which fate awaits us, one thing is for sure. The universe isn't standing still. Its structure is inextricably bound to time. But if atoms themselves are timeless, do they really participate in this process? Or do they belong to an entirely separate plane of existence? This makes the question even more daunting. If time is an illusion, could the universe be an illusion too? Everything we perceive, all the movement, change, and passage, might just be a projection of how we interpret reality. Some physicists are even exploring this very possibility. That physical laws do not necessarily require time at all. In some equations describing the most fundamental levels of the universe, time doesn't appear anywhere. If that's truly the case, the time we experience might just be an emergent hallucination. Think of it like reading a book. As we turn the pages, we feel the story unfolding step by step. But to someone holding the entire book in their hands, the past, the present, and the future are actually all there already. Could time be the same way? The entire history of the universe, from the Big Bang to the final end, might simply exist as a timeless whole. And what we call time is just the way we navigate through it. If that's true, how do we even define existence itself? This is no longer just a question of physics, it's a question of philosophy. Because if time is not the core of reality, but something we impose upon it, then how much of reality is actually real? And how much is just our own perception? More importantly, if atoms truly transcend time, what about us? Is it possible for us to step outside of it too? Could we ever see a truly timeless universe? In fact, neuroscience has already provided some clues. During moments of extreme terror, we feel as though time slows down. In states of deep meditation, time seems to disappear entirely. And people who have had near-death experiences often describe feeling as if they had stepped completely out of time. Could these moments be a glimpse through a crack into the truth? If so, then science and mysticism are starting to overlap. Because throughout history, countless faiths and traditions have described such a state. A place where time no longer exists, and the past, present, and future are perceived simultaneously. And today, physics is moving closer and closer to that very answer. Time is, in all likelihood, nothing but an illusion. If that's really the case, then the meaning of life and death will change forever. Death might not be the end, but rather, a transition into a different way of experiencing reality. A way that is no longer bound by time. Then the question arises, if time is an illusion, what else is? If atoms aren't bound by time, what about us? Perhaps the key to understanding time isn't in equations but in experience. Humanity's next great leap might not be discovering new laws of physics, but learning to perceive reality in an entirely new way. Or maybe the truth is even stranger than we could ever imagine. Because if time isn't fundamental, then could the entire universe have been built upon an illusion all along? Could what we call existence be nothing more than a delusion? We often think of space and time as a fabric that holds reality up. But if time isn't real, what about space? Could it be just another phantom? To unravel this mystery, we must look at one of the most revolutionary and most fascinating concepts in modern physics, the holographic principle. It tells us that this three-dimensional world might just be a projection of a lower-dimensional reality, just as a two-dimensional hologram can encode a three-dimensional image. The entire universe might just be a projection from a higher dimension. And all of this stems from scientists trying to answer an ultimate puzzle. When information falls into a black hole, where does it actually go? According to traditional theories, everything that falls into a black hole is gone forever. But quantum mechanics suggests that information cannot simply vanish into thin air. It must exist in some form. And so, the holographic principle emerged. It tells us that perhaps the information isn't destroyed, but encoded onto the surface of the black hole. If that's true, then the entire universe might work the same way. The space-time and matter we see might all be written on the edge of the universe, and then projected inward, to become the reality we perceive. But if space and time are just projections, then what about atoms? Are they truly fundamental, or are they just shadows of a deeper illusion? If time itself is a mirage, then could atoms just be a manifestation of some reality that transcends time and space? To understand this, we have to talk about the wave function. In quantum mechanics, particles don't have a fixed position or set of properties until they are actually observed. They just exist within a cloud of probability. Only when they are observed do they choose a specific state. Some physicists even believe that the wave function isn't just a mathematical tool. It might actually be reality itself, and the physical world is just a shell that emerges from it. If that's really the case, then atoms aren't solid particles at all. They might just be ripples in a mathematical field, only turning into reality when they're measured. So the question is, what exactly causes the wave function to collapse? What forces reality to take shape? One theory is that the act of observation itself forces the universe to make a choice. In other words, consciousness might play a part in building reality. If observation can determine reality, could it also determine time? If so, then what happens to time when there are no observers around? Just imagine a universe with no life at all, with no intelligence to perceive its passage. Would time even exist then? Or would it just dissolve completely into an eternal quantum mist? Some theories suggest that the early universe may have existed in a timeless quantum state, until time gradually crystallized out of it. If time can emerge, can it also disappear? And when there are no conscious beings left, will time just bow out completely? This leads to a more unsettling question. If the universe eventually reaches a state of total equilibrium, where energy is evenly distributed, and there are no changes left, will time fade away along with it? When that moment comes, what will be left? In a universe without time, what does it even mean to be? Perhaps the answer lies not in physics but in perception. Maybe time is just a framework we impose on reality, a tool our brains created to make sense of a timeless universe. We can actually see this in our own experiences. When you're focused, time seems to fly by. When you're afraid, it stretches out, and during meditation or when you're unconscious, it might even vanish. Many people who have had near-death experiences say they feel as if they've stepped out of time, nothing left but pure awareness. Could this be the truth? That time isn't a cage trapping us, but an illusion we project ourselves. If that's the case, then the meaning of life and death must be rewritten. Death might not be the end, but merely a transition into a different way of experiencing, a mode of existence no longer governed by time. An even bolder question, since we created time, can we learn to master it? Is it possible to change our perception of time, break past its boundaries, and see the reality of the universe? Many ancient traditions have been hinting at this. Mystics, monks, and practitioners have all described similar states, where time loses its meaning, and reality reveals itself as one vast, complete whole, no longer divided into past, present, and future. And today, physics is also heading toward a similar conclusion, that time might truly be an illusion. So the question becomes, what really matters isn't whether time exists, but whether we can transcend it. If atoms are not bound by time, and consciousness itself participates in shaping reality, then humanity's next leap forward might not be technological, but a shift in perception. So when we finally see the truth beyond time, what will we discover? Might we see a universe where all possibilities exist simultaneously? Might we see that we are not creatures trapped on a single timeline, but beings far more vast and infinite? This is no longer an abstract question, but one that strikes at the core of existence. If time isn't real, then what is? If atoms don't experience time, why do we? And when we finally break free from the illusion of time, what will be waiting for us? Perhaps, time is not the foundation of the universe, but just a facade created by our limited perception. What we think of as beginnings and endings may just be an illusion created by our brains. And in true reality, everything that has happened, and everything that is to come, could all already exist, just waiting for us to illuminate them. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics even suggest that the entire history of the universe, the past, the present, and the future, all exist simultaneously. Reality doesn't unfold moment by moment, but is instead a complete and immutable whole. Our consciousness is simply wandering through it, like a flashlight illuminating different points along a vast timeline. If that's true, then what does change actually mean? Could it be that so-called change is just us shifting our perspective within a predetermined structure? And then a deeper question arises. If the future already exists, does free will even exist? Are we truly making choices, or are we just walking down a path that was paved long ago? Some scientists say time is like a river, and we can only flow along with it. Others say, time is like a landscape. All points are already there, and our movement through it is just an illusion. If the latter is correct, then could there be a day when we break through this illusion and truly see the reality of time? Neuroscience has already provided a clue. The brain doesn't actually experience time linearly. It stitches together fragments to create the illusion of continuity. And in extreme states, this illusion can collapse, allowing one to perceive a world without time. So, could it be our default consciousness that locks us inside time? If we could change this way of perceiving, could we experience an existence that transcends time? And this is even linked to another great mystery of physics. Why does the universe appear to be just right, tailor-made for life? Gravity, the charge of an electron, the properties of atoms. They are all precisely set within a range suitable for life to exist. If they were off by even a fraction, life could never have emerged. Some say it's just a coincidence, but others have proposed a bolder theory. The universe is fine-tuned, because consciousness itself plays a role in its structure. Quantum mechanics has already proven that observation can influence reality. So could it be that consciousness also shapes time? If atoms truly transcend time, are we, then, essentially imposing time onto reality? This brings us to one of the most bizarre and controversial theories in modern physics, retrocausality. Retrocausality suggests that future events can actually influence the past. In other words, time isn't just a one-way river. Instead, it's a two-way thoroughfare. Cause and effect can flow in both directions simultaneously. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics even imply that a future event can determine a past outcome. If that's really the case, then time isn't an absolute sequence. It's more of a flexible, dynamic structure, where the past, present, and future are all intertwined. So the question is, if retrocausality is real, what does it actually mean? Could our future choices be shaping our present reality right now? Could it be that atoms, existing in a state beyond time, are being influenced by events that haven't happened yet? More importantly, if the future has already been written, is it still possible for us to change it? Or are we just walking down a path that's already been paved? Some experimental results are even more unsettling. In certain quantum systems, researchers have found that even after a choice has supposedly been made, it can still be retroactively modified. If time were truly linear, this would be completely impossible. Yet the data suggests that time might not be that way at all. So, if the past and future are truly in constant conversation, how much control do we really have over our destiny? Are we moving through time, or is time moving through us? Perhaps, the real question isn't does time exist? But rather, can we ever fully step outside of it? If atoms are fundamentally unbound by time, and our sense of time is just a way for our brains to process reality, then could it be that we are already existing in a state beyond time, only we just don't realize it? Some thinkers have proposed that what we call life is nothing more than our experience of navigating through the structure of time, simply entering into another state of being. Time is fundamentally not applicable. If time is an illusion, could consciousness exist beyond it? This leads to an even greater mystery. If time is not fundamental, then when we strip away the illusions of time and space, what is the true face of reality? Some physicists believe the answer might lie in information. Not particles, not energy, but everything, matter, energy, and even time itself, is just information, processed within an infinitely complex system. If this is true, then what we call reality might just be one of countless arrangements of information. And what truly determines which version of reality we experience? Could it be consciousness? Experiments also show that observation is not a passive recording, but an active decision on which version of reality will come into being. If that's the case, then what about time? Could it be that we aren't experiencing time, but creating it? Then what happens if we stop observing? Perhaps, the greatest mystery is not what time is, but rather, why do we need to experience it? If atoms can transcend time, why can't we? Maybe the answer isn't just in physics, but at a deeper level, perception, consciousness, and the fundamental structure of reality. This brings up a more unsettling question. If time isn't real, then what is consciousness? Could the reality we perceive moment by moment just be an illusion created by the brain? Could consciousness itself actually exist in a timeless state, only occasionally dipping into time? Some scientists believe that our experience of time is actually just a function of memory and cognition, rather than an absolute property of the universe. The brain doesn't receive reality continuously. It's like taking snapshots, then stitching them together into a continuous movie. But what if time really is the cornerstone of the universe? Then it should be independently measurable. Yet, no such measurement exists. Therefore, time feels more like a subjective phenomenon, a byproduct of information processing, rather than an inherent property of reality. So, here's the question. When we're asleep, where does time go? When we're in a coma, blacked out, or even under anesthesia, where does time go? For the person experiencing it, it simply disappears. Many people say they feel like those hours never even happened, as if time had been completely wiped away. Could this mean that time only exists during the moments we are actively perceiving reality? What about death? If consciousness ends, does time end with it? From the perspective of someone who has passed away, does time cease to exist entirely? This brings up a new question. Does consciousness itself exist outside of time? One of the most shocking revelations of quantum mechanics is that observation determines reality. Before particles are measured, they are merely a cloud of probability. It is only when observed that they collapse into a definite state. Consciousness isn't just a passive bystander. It is an active participant, perhaps even shaping the fundamental structure of reality. Could it be that consciousness exists on a timeless plane, and only experiences time when it interacts with the physical world? To put it another way, our perception of time might be like playing a video game, only when we look in a certain direction. Does the game render that scene? Could time also only exist when we perceive it? And if no one is observing, does time continue? Or does it also dissolve, like the waves of a quantum particle, dissipating into uncertainty? This brings us to an even older question. If consciousness and time are entangled, then what exactly is the relationship between the mind and the universe? Some theories suggest that consciousness is not a product of the individual, but a fundamental property of the universe itself, transcending the individual, biological structures, and even time. If this is true, what does death really mean? Is it a total fading away? Or a shift into another state, an existence completely unbound by time? Near-death experiences offer some startling clues. Many who have been brought back report the same sensation. That time no longer exists. They see their entire life flash before them in an instant, not in a linear sequence, but as a complete whole. They even describe entering a bizarre state, where the past, present, and future all merge together into one eternal now, and it feels more real than any other experience. Could this be the truth? That time only applies to our physical existence? That when we leave our bodies behind, we return to a state of timeless awareness? Many ancient traditions throughout history have described this state as well. Practitioners say they feel the universe as a single, unified whole, where time simply does not exist. So, is this telling us that time is just a temporary illusion of human perception, and that true existence has already transcended it? If that's the case, then what are we, really? Are we beings trapped in time, or entities that exist beyond it all along? Could our perception of a linear timeline just be a temporary state, something that only applies while we inhabit this physical dimension? As the world changes, some theories in quantum physics suggest that consciousness might be a fundamental force of the universe. It is not something created by the brain, but something that exists independently of it. This concept, known as panpsychism, proposes that consciousness does not emerge from matter. Rather, it is embedded in the very fabric of reality. If this is true, could it explain why, in deep states of awareness, time seems to vanish? Does this mean that when we stop observing time, we return to a state where time no longer exists? This would fundamentally change our understanding of existence. We would no longer view life as a linear journey from birth to death, but perhaps see it as something cyclical, emerging from a state of timelessness, existing briefly within the confines of time, and then returning to a state beyond time. This idea aligns with some of the oldest spiritual traditions in human history. Many mystical traditions describe a reality where time is an illusion. The past, present, and future are all part of one unified whole. Some ancient teachings even suggest that enlightenment is waking up from the illusion of time. It is the realization that we were never truly bound by it in the first place. Could it be that time is not something we need to escape from, but rather something we need to see through? Could the key to understanding reality not be breaking free from time, but realizing we were never trapped by it at all? This has profound implications for our understanding of the universe, life, and even the nature of who we are. It has deep-reaching consequences. If consciousness is timeless, then who are we, really? Are we temporary beings born into time, only to be erased from existence? Or are we eternal observers existing outside of time, simply experiencing different moments of reality? And if that is the case, what does it mean for everything we thought we knew? Perhaps our greatest limitation is not time itself, but the belief that we are trapped within it. Perhaps the truth is far more extraordinary. We are beings of infinite awareness, simply experiencing the illusion of time for a little while. If time is an illusion, then what awaits us beyond it? Time shapes everything we know. It dictates the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth and death of stars, and that relentless forward momentum of our own existence. It governs our thoughts, our fears, our memories, and our dreams. Yet, despite how much it dominates, we are now facing a remarkable possibility. That time itself might not be as real as we have always believed. If atoms exist outside of time, if their fundamental nature remains untouched by the passing of seconds, minutes, or hours, then what does that say about the reality we live in? Have we mistaken a perceptual experience for absolute truth? Have we built our entire understanding of existence upon an illusion? Perhaps time is nothing more than a construct, one that emerges from the way we observe the world, rather than being a fundamental property of the universe itself. If that's the case, then we were never truly bound by time at all. We simply believed we were. This realization forces us to re-examine everything we thought we knew. If time isn't what it seems on the surface, then what about space? What about matter? And what of the very fabric of reality? Some of the greatest minds in history have struggled with these questions. Einstein shattered the concept of absolute time, showing us that time stretches and bends with gravity and speed. Quantum mechanics has eroded the foundation of time even further, revealing a world where particles exist in timeless states of probability. The future can influence the past, and the phenomenon of entanglement suggests that distance itself might just be an illusion. If these ideas are true, then what does it mean to be alive? If the universe isn't bound by time, could consciousness itself be timeless? Are we not actually moving through time, but rather experiencing something like a whole, singular existence, a vast, unchanging reality, that we just mistakenly perceive as unfolding moment by moment? This brings us to perhaps the most unsettling question. If time is an illusion, then what happens when it ends? We have long feared death, because we believe it is the end of our time. But if time is not fundamental, if it is merely a way of experiencing reality, then does anything really ever come to an end? If atoms do not grow old, if they persist through the rise and fall of galaxies, then couldn't consciousness itself also persist beyond the illusion of time? Some have proposed that what we call death is just a transition, a shift in awareness, a movement beyond the limits of time. If time is nothing more than perception, then what we call the end might just be the moment our perspective shifts. If that's the case, what else have we misunderstood? For centuries, mystics, philosophers, and spiritual traditions have described a universe where the past, present, and future are one. Time is an illusion, and consciousness exists beyond physical form. Do these ancient insights hold some hidden truth that physics is only now beginning to uncover? If time is a product of observation, then perhaps the greatest discovery is not a new scientific breakthrough. It is actually a shift in how we perceive reality. What would we see if we could break free from the illusion of time? Would we discover that we have always existed outside of time, and that we just never realized our own timeless nature? Perhaps this is the final realization. We have been looking for ways to escape time, but in truth, we were never really trapped by it. Atoms do not experience time. They do not grow old. Unless acted upon, they do not decay either. They do not perceive a past or a future. If the fundamental building blocks of the universe are not bound by time, then why do we assume that we are? What if we are only bound by our own beliefs about time? What if we are like a shadow cast upon a river, mistaking the movement of the water for our own motion? If time is an illusion, then reality itself might be far more extraordinary than we imagine. The past may not have disappeared, and the future may not be unwritten. The present might just be a single frame within a much grander, eternal structure. If that is the case, then the greatest mystery might not be time itself, but how we experience it. The greatest illusion might not be time, but our belief that we are separate from it. If we could change that belief, and learn to see through this illusion, then beyond time, what exactly would be waiting for us?